I've been preparing, honestly. The topic I want to discuss today is the consequences of your inner child interacting with you. I'll start off gently, and then we'll see how it goes. Do any of you find it difficult to play with your child? In general, people like to place their mom in me.
Some part of me still doesn't know I survived.
We don't remember anything, so it didn't happen.
Every time I found out I was pregnant, I was scared.
Watching how the body reacts. You don't just come back from the dead. If they wanted to kill someone, they'd kill them in the river, and no one would ever find the body.
They tried to drown me, but they didn't succeed. How do you know all this? Yulia Ivlieva is a karmic person.
I didn't expect there to be any dirt on the host.
It'll all show up later, and I always kept it hidden.
Your dream has come true.
Oh man, that's real.
This is Show Method, a show without a script. Today we're going to talk about children, and more specifically, your child parts, those injured and traumatized, and how to heal them. Let's go see what scenarios you have unfolding with your inner child in your adult life. Let's go. Thank you so much for coming. I've been preparing, honestly. Up until 3 days ago, I didn't know at all what we were going to talk about. Last night before I went to bed, I was thinking, I've got to find some point of conversation with you. And I've come up with something that I want to discuss with you. This is a subject about child parts. The inner child. The child parts. People are already sighing. And how your inner child may interact with you, and through what consequences. I'll start off gently, and then we'll see how it goes. I don't want to shock you right away. Tell me, do any of you have children? Raise your hands. Oh, you guys are good. Do any of you find it difficult to play with your child? Like you just can't stand it? You can't play with your child and they say, "Mommy, play with me, Mommy." And you reply, "No, no, no, I've got work. I've got things to do." Here, let's go. Yeah. Difficult to play with your child. And you love them sincerely, but you just can't bring yourself to play dolls or cars with them. You can do it for a couple of minutes at most. Take a seat. For some reason, I took a chance, not asking for details, but trusting the process. What is your name?
I'm Nadia.
Nadezhda. All right. How many kids do you have?
I have 4 children.
Wow. Great. And you can't play with them?
It's always been difficult for me, both with my older son, who is now 20, and my younger son, who is 5. I just can't play with them.
What does it look like? When he invites you to play, what's going on in your head at that moment?
For some reason, I always had the understanding that I had to play. I have to play. I have to manifest myself somehow. But when the moment comes and the child asks to play, I ask myself the question, why should I? I can teach, I can read books, I can go to theaters, go for walks, have fun messing around with them, but I can't play dolls with my daughter or my 3 sons. It's always been very difficult for me.
How old are they now?
My son is 20, daughter is 18, another son is 16, and my youngest is 5.
Also a son?
Yes.
It's a familiar story that you can't bring yourself to play, isn't it? Is there anyone for whom it's easy to play? All life is a game, it's easy to play? Okay, Oh man, you guys are so cool. I'll talk to you later. I remembered you were here too. And how do you live with that?
Not well.
All right. I have another question. Did you ever experience that when you were little? Something unexpected happened, and you were on the cusp of life and death? Something happening that put you on the cusp? Do you know something about yourself where you have been on the verge of life and death?
I haven't had any such cases, but my dad used to beat me. I'm really scared to talk about it right now, and I know they'll be watching this footage.
Look how interesting this is. I understand that you want to bring up your situation in your story, but that's a different topic. I didn't call you in because Dad used to beat you. I called you here because it's hard for you to play with your kids.
I don't recall such a life or death situation.
Do you remember your childhood?
Some parts of it.
Since what age?
I think since I was about 5, I guess.
From the age of 5.
Well, maybe younger, in small snippets.
And from the age of 5, do you remember everything clearly or in fragments?
In fragments.
All right, I'm going to suggest some phrases to you. We're just going to see what happens to you. Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that I don't remember
that I don't remember
a large portion of my childhood,
a large portion of my childhood,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
My psyche
My psyche
protects me
protects me
by forgetting
by forgetting
things that happened,
things that happened,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How do you feel?
At first, my heart was racing like crazy, but now it's letting up.
Are there those among you who don't remember their childhood at all until the age of 13, 14? Let me explain why this happens. Because when you as a child weren't capable of dealing with some situation, it created lots of emotions, feelings, fears of insecurity. When you were kids, your psyche couldn't process that and do something about it. So then it triggers the defense mechanism of forgetting. You just don't remember what happened back then. You just don't remember what it was like when you were 10 years old. You just don't remember what it was like when you were 3 or 7 years old. And it happens in life that when you have closed, locked away a memory, It reproduces itself in adulthood so that you can extract it out of yourself and live through it. It's from the child part, 3 to 5 years old, 7 years old. You couldn't handle it then. And now you're 30, 40, or 50, in different circumstances. But for you to deal with it, the world is now playing out a similar scenario. And that's your general history. So in order for you to be able to deal with it, you start meeting people in your life who do exactly the same things to you that your dad did back then, without end, so that you can react, do things differently. It's the same for each of you. There are defense mechanisms for childhood experiences that were unbearable, intolerable to you as a child. One of them is forgetting. You don't remember anything, so it didn't happen. And for those of you who don't remember your entire childhood, believe me, there is a lot to unpack. And just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it doesn't manifest. The world is a very wise thing, and it will begin to ration out these situations and feelings to you with repetition, as soon as you are ready. With repetition so you can deal with it. I acknowledge and accept.
I acknowledge and accept
That some part of me doesn't remember what happened back then, and I give it space.
I give it space.
And some part of me remembers everything clearly, and I give it space as well. I acknowledge and accept that back then I couldn't survive, and I give it space. I embrace that experience at exactly the price at which I got it. I acknowledge and accept that some part of me still doesn't know that I survived, and I give that part space. I embrace that experience at exactly the price at which I got it, and I give that part space. How do you feel?
I don't know.
There is some reaction, some feelings.
I know this case.
What happened back then?
My dad punished me really bad, and my mom didn't protect me. I was just a kid.
Punished you how?
Punished how? Can I say it?
Yes, you can say it.
Thank you.
They have the same thing. There will be thousands of people watching, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and they had the same thing. And they can't talk about it either. They're silent about it too. What's more, some of them are silent to the point that even their mom doesn't know about it. Mom doesn't know, no one knows. The therapist didn't know after 6 months of therapy. They don't tell anyone. They each have their own secrets, themes involving violence, dangerous situations, drugs. This topic sticks out. And they're silent too. What happened back then?
I'll tell you. I'm sidestepping this case with the therapists and myself. It often sticks out in my mind because I'm really ashamed of what happened back then. My dad punished me. He beat me, put me in a corner. I think I was almost naked. I don't remember it exactly, but this particular incident, I think that's when something inside of me changed. I was probably about 5 years old, maybe a little older.
Were you afraid to die back then?
I probably wanted to die, and I was afraid. I still experience the fear of death every day.
There's something even more interesting. We'll get there. Breathe easy for now.
My only hope right now is that it will all show up later, and I've always hid it. For me, it's so...
Your dream has come true.
Oh man, that's real. I think I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. You see, Nadia wants to steer me into her topic in every way she can. And to me, that means that where I'm looking now is even more painful and hidden than what you're showing. Just trust me. All right, let's approach from the other side. Have you ever had a situation where your children were on the cusp of life and death?
Yes. Every time I found out I was pregnant, I was scared. And with my older son, when I first got pregnant, I didn't even realize that fact. I thought I didn't need a baby right now. But he was born.
How did that work out?
I read on the internet that I should get an early termination of pregnancy.
And so I did.
Yes.
But he survived anyway.
Yes. I wanted to tell them about it, but I'm telling it now. Because I love them all very much.
You're very brave.
Thank you.
Would you like me to show you what this moment is about? 1 second. Are you married now?
We have been together for 13 years. This is my third life together. But we are not married. The first 2 times I was married.
Do you have this feeling that you want to be very close to your man?
Yes, I do.
Very close. You want to be around him everywhere. Walking hand in hand, going to the movies together, birthday parties together. Everywhere, always together.
Yes, I do.
Do you? Does anybody have any idea what this is about? Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that I might not have been born,
that I might not have been born,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace the experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it,
at which I got it,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
Do you know the story of your birth?
My mom used to tell me that they really wanted me, and for 3 months she couldn't get pregnant when they got married. It was a tragedy, and then I was born.
What was the tragedy again?
That she couldn't get pregnant for 3 months when they got married, and Mom really wanted the baby.
It's interesting how you say it. They got married and it was a tragedy. I thought, what? What did I hear? Interesting. How did she give birth to you? Do you know anything about it?
Yes.
All right, I'll say it straight. Was there a risk that either you or Mom would die in childbirth?
I don't know of any such risk, but that my mom was constantly at risk because of different RH. Yeah, that was there.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that some part of me
that some part of me
still doesn't know that we were born back then,
that we were born back then,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
my inner child parts. Say, inside of me, there is a host of dead babies.
There is a host of dead babies.
Every time my mom was told I wouldn't make it,
Every time my mom was told I wouldn't make it,
some part of me really believed that, and I give that part space.
and I give that part space.
How do you feel?
Frozen.
Yes. I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all those in my family
all those in my family
and in my reincarnations,
and in my reincarnations,
the babies
the babies
and embryos
and embryos
who were frozen,
who were frozen,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
which I already paid for it,
which I already paid for it,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
It just so happens that I work with all of them through you. And it can be the case that through you, it gets out to others. Are you okay? Breathe. When a mother is faced with the question of having a child, your family's version of you is that they wanted you very badly. They tried, but it didn't work out right away. And Mom was at frequent risk of miscarriage. Is that right? The doctors talked about how the RH factor didn't match. So there was a risk of being born prematurely or not surviving. So it shows in traumatized and dead baby parts. They aren't 5, 7, 15 years old. We'll come back to that again. But they are specifically infantile, formed in utero in the 3rd month, in the 5th month, and it further unfolds in your life. She has 4 children, and there have been attempts to kill them. That is, the dead baby part begins to manifest itself through the attempted death of the real baby in the belly. Do you understand? Does that make sense to everyone? Or else, and the feelings that came up in you, what you wanted to do, did that happen with just your oldest son, or with all 4?
I guess I was afraid for all of the kids. The first reaction was fear and the question of what to do next.
All right. The baby is in a complete fusion with their mom, in complete codependency. And in adulthood, when the dead baby is in the unconscious, you start looking for ways to manifest it. And who to start playing this mother-baby fusion with. And you enter this fusion through a man. You go everywhere together. You tell him, what about me? And why didn't you call me back? In simple language, it is a desire to be like a baby, for your mother to take you in her arms and for you to be in this fusion. But the psyche doesn't realize this and starts asking the man, Where are you? Are you here? Are you there? Come on, we need to go everywhere together and sleep together under the same blanket. You really, really want this fusion. Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that I lack a mother,
that I lack a mother,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
And I'm used to searching for a mom
And I'm used to searching for a mom
in my men
in my men
and entering a fusion with them
and entering a fusion with them
so that they can complete me,
so that they can complete me,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
my inner baby
my inner baby
who really lacks a mom,
who really lacks a mom,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How do you feel?
It's true. I always miss her. Thank you.
And there's something your mom's not telling you. Say the phrase, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that in my family,
that in my family
there's a lot of lies
there's a lot of lies
in regard to children.
in regard to children.
These secrets were hidden
These secrets were hidden
for many generations,
for many generations,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it.
at which I got it.
And they say they were looking forward to you, really wanted you. Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that when my mom got pregnant with me,
that when my mom got pregnant with me,
it was a tragedy for her,
it was a tragedy for her,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
It was later that she got used to it,
It was later that she got used to it,
to being pregnant,
to being pregnant,
and to loving me.
and to loving me.
But her first reaction
But her first reaction
was the same as mine,
was the same as mine,
with my children,
with my children,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How are you?
Not so good.
But you're smiling. Everyone is crying. This is a sad movie. But the psyche has a very interesting structure. How old are you now?
44.
44 years old. Even though these are old matters, 44 years old, these feelings don't have an expiration date. There is no such thing as time healing you or it passing after a while. The psyche endlessly wants to get this out and live this fusion with your mom. If you want, you and I can live it out now, if you're ready.
Yes.
Will you take a path that leads to the vulnerability of your inner baby, the one that could have been killed?
I will.
All right, I'm prepared. Look, I'm everyone's mother today. Today I will be yours. Come over here on the steps. Sit next to me. Now get into a baby's pose and lie on my lap. Yes, yes, with your head. Just like a baby. My personal memories are coming back. I feel like I'm drifting away a little bit. Let me do the talking and the rest will fall into place. I acknowledge and accept all those in my family of women who chose to have an abortion so that the rest of us can survive. To have enough food, enough resources for everyone else. And I give it space. I accept this experience at exactly the price I paid for it. Close your eyes. She's scared to even let me go.
I keep putting my head in her lap just to lay there.
And a man's knees are not the same, you know.
Yes.
And these parts, they reproduce in the fact that she had thoughts of killing her children in the womb. Dear dead baby parts, to manifest those of you who had a question between life and death when you were a young child, when your mom was genuinely afraid for you because you took some pills or ate some soap, or found poisonous grass in the garden, sawdust, nails, bones, whatever else you ate. When your mom was genuinely scared that you were about to die, some part of you doesn't know that you survived then. And in order to manifest, it begins to manifest itself through risking the life and death of your children. When you just as surely start to fear that something will happen to your child. And in order to show your dead childish part, it starts getting itself into situations where it eats pills, sawdust, grass in the garden, and whatever else. How do you feel?
I'm all right.
Yes? Awesome. In general, people like to place their mom in me. These projections fit me very well. How's it going now?
Thank you. I think I've always been afraid of being a woman. Thank you.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all those women in my family
all those women in my family
and in my reincarnations
and in my reincarnations
who died or were hurt for just the fact of being a woman. And I give it space. Say, there's a lot of violence against women in my family.
There's a lot of violence against women in my family.
And I give it space.
I
embrace that experience. At exactly the price. At which I got it. Say, I acknowledge and accept that having a boy was easier
Definitely.
than a girl. Because a girl
Because a girl
is a future woman.
is a future woman.
Say, what kind of mother am I?
What kind of mother am I?
To have female children,
To have female children.
to make them suffer like that.
To make them suffer like that.
And I give it space.
And I give it space. Damn. How do you know all this? You know, it's easier for me with boys than with my daughter. I'm too rough with her. Damn.
Say, out of habit,
Out of habit,
I uphold the tradition
I uphold the tradition
of violence against women in my family.
of violence against women in my family.
And I give it space.
And I give it space.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that back then in the corner,
that back then, in the corner,
a small girl died inside of me.
a small girl died inside of me.
And the one that pulled me out
And the one that pulled me out
was the inner boy.
was the inner boy.
And I give it space.
And I give it space. Yes. When I found out I was pregnant with my fourth and that it was going to be a son, I let out a sigh of relief. Even though we all waited. Well, we wanted it to be a girl. Imagine that.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. Now, I need someone who remembers an event in their childhood where they were on the verge of life and death. Better yet, those who have had several of these events, whose mom kept pulling them out of intensive care all the time. You keep your hands up, I see. Here, yeah, you come up. What is your name?
Yulia. Yulia.
Wow. All right. Take a seat. Tell me, what happened to you as a child? How did the boundary between life and death manifest itself?
I was a troubled child.
That's what your mother told you.
Well, everyone told me that. When I was 5, it's a kind of distinct moment. When I was 5 years old, at that time they let us go out alone. Not like now.
With a key around my neck.
Yes.
Or the key was under the front doormat or in the mailbox. People keep their keys in different places.
When I was 5 years old, I was climbing barns with the company with similar children, age give or take a year. I was climbing down from the barn, stumbled and fell from a fairly large height with my crotch on a staked fence.
Do you have children?
3 of them.
Let's do a little work on this. We'll continue this later. I feel there's a lot of potential there. Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all those in my family
all those in my family
and in my reincarnations
and in my reincarnations
who was executed.
who was executed.
And I give it space.
And I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it.
at which I got it.
I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my reincarnations
all my reincarnations
which were executed, particularly violently, staked, and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it,
at which I got it,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
Watch how the body reacts. Redness and blisters like a burn. How do you feel?
Very shaky and like being in turbulence.
Breathe for now. Breathe. This series of accidents, when at the age of 5 I ran away with a bunch of kids behind the barn, stumbled and fell on the fence, on the stakes of the fence. Then there was the ambulance, blood loss, and the risk of not having children. Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my reincarnations
all my reincarnations
where there was a witch hunt.
where there was a witch hunt.
I've been hunted many times.
I've been hunted many times,
And I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it.
at which I got it.
How do you feel? I really want to say I'm sorry for what happened back then.
Когда Юля вышла, и я спросила, как тебя зовут, и ты говоришь,
When Yulia came up on stage and I asked you what your name was, and you said Yulia, I look, and my first thought as an alter ego is that I'm meeting myself.
Хорошо, давай дальше.
Anyway, let's move on. I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all those in my family
all those in my family
and in my reincarnations
and in my reincarnations
who served
who served
the Holy Inquisition.
the Holy Inquisition,
And I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it.
at which I got it.
Say, back then,
Back then,
there were a lot of murders,
there were a lot of murders,
including those of children,
including those of children,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How do you feel?
Expanding. Strong flow.
Да.
Yes. They took you to the hospital. What happened next?
They took me to the hospital. I had to relearn how to defecate. I wouldn't let anyone near me. I had a little sister at the time. At that moment, I felt taken care of.
By whom?
My mother. Because she spent all of her days with me. She couldn't do it at night. Afterward, I still kept climbing, running, and jumping around everywhere.
Were there any other repeats afterwards where there was a risk of losing you again?
There was a strong repeat. I was 16 years old, and I was into tourism. We lived in Altai Krai at that time and went to Shivlinsky Lakes. It started raining. We were coming down the cliffs, and I took a bad fall down into the mountain river. I got my foot stuck between some big boulders.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my reincarnations
all my reincarnations
when I died on those lakes.
when I died on those lakes,
And I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it.
at which I got it,
And I give it space.
and I give it space.
Do you work with people now?
Yes,
What do you do?
I am a tour guide.
Yes. A succession of events. When one lives through so many trials, this line of life and death cannot pass without a permanent mark. Here's a question I had. Do you work with people? Do you work with people? What brings you here today?
Just on a hunch.
Have you had your kids live this life or death risk?
Yes,
At what age?
different for everyone.
So each one of them had it?
Well, I don't remember my son having one yet.
And the other two kids?
The second daughter, she was born with 4 severe cephalohematome on her head. The youngest daughter, or rather, the oldest daughter, had an insignificant one. We were in surgery with her.
What do you mean insignificant? Was it a life and death risk?
No, it wasn't. It's just that I was pregnant at the time. And as soon as we got out of surgery, I had an abortion.
Why? If you can talk about it.
I just couldn't imagine having a second child. This was my first husband, and I subconsciously knew that I wouldn't have a life with him in the future.
All right, well, let's move on for now, because we're really getting carried away. Dear friends, those of you who have lived life and death situations, especially clinical death situations, I haven't seen a single person come out of there with no ability yet. If a person comes back from clinical death, they will 100% have some special abilities. They see something in pictures, hear things, make predictions, see the future, or clues of some kind. You don't just come back from the dead. You have a lot of mirror stories in there too, where you died, but you also killed. With stakes and executions and the Inquisition, saying, I acknowledge and accept.
I acknowledge and accept
All my reincarnations,
all my reincarnations,
where I had to come up with torture methods for people,
and
I give it space. I embrace that experience at exactly the price at which I got it. And I give it space. And when you went to the lakes, the goal was for you not to get there. They didn't want to kill you, they saved you. The boulders save you. Not even people, the boulders. You have come to the point where processes can energetically trigger. Dear tourists, when you travel to places of power, Armenia, Georgia, Mount Kazbek, millions of other places, powerful temples, monasteries all over the world, you should realize that you came not just to see the ancient walls. These places always have a very powerful energy. And this powerful energy can unfold differently for each person. If you have been shot in this place in many reincarnations over the centuries, killed near this wall of this temple, then it will not be a place of power for you, but a place of trauma. And when you come up against that wall, you will fall back into that dynamic. It will turn on, activate the codes. And these places can trigger new processes in you. Vital human processes. Life in general can go down a different branch of probability because you went somewhere. And some place can be an incredible place of power for you. Just unbelievable. You can go there and just as surely turn your life and destiny around to the positive from the very fact of visiting that place. You may have some personal place of trauma. Maybe your clan lived somewhere in Egypt, in India, in Russia, or somewhere in European countries, and you live in South America. And here you're thinking, it's okay, I'm from Argentina. Let me go to Europe and see the beauty. And there were hundreds of people shot. You arrive and you just activate that place of trauma. Your personal, private trauma, what's stored in your memory in codes. Also, you each have a place of power. To other people, this place holds no value, absolutely none. Just a field or just a village, whatever, nothing special. But for you, that's your personalized place of power. This place of power is where your ancestors have lived for centuries or several generations. If you know that your grandmother, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, and great-great-great-grandfather lived in this village, and it could be some small village somewhere in the region, but it's your personalized place of power. When you come to this personalized place of power, you can take a resource there. Be nourished. And in general, if you know about such places, if you know that you have such a place, you can build a house there and come for your personal retreat. Drink milk, take water from the well. For you, it will be more powerful than holy water, because it's a place of power for your kind. Do you have a place like this where both your grandmother and great-grandmother lived?
The Altai Mountains.
Awesome. That's where your power is. You must have a good connection with the spirits, right?
Yes.
You're a shaman?
In past reincarnations, yes.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all those in my family
all those in my family
and in my reincarnations
and in my reincarnations
who was a shaman,
who was a shaman,
and I give them space.
and I give them space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it,
at which I got it,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my reincarnations
all my reincarnations
where I was a stone,
where I was a stone,
a mountain, or a cliff,
a mountain, or a cliff,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it,
at which I got it,
and I give it space.
and I give it space. We do business in the mountains now because I have pictures of mountains everywhere in my house. I'm surrounded by mountains.
The stone saved your life. Your life was saved by the stones when you fell into the river. Not people, even though people were around. If they wanted to kill you, they'd kill you in the river, and no one would ever find the body. There are so many drownings in the Altai.
I was drowned.
But they failed. You can't sink a witch that easily. Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that in my past reincarnations,
that in my past reincarnations,
I drowned many people,
I drowned many people,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
that I paid for it.
that I paid for it.
Say, I'm still
I'm still
hesitant to go in water
hesitant to go in water
because I might drown,
because I might drown,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
And water is a symbol of the unconscious. People, the reason I asked is if there are any of you who can't swim. Translated into plain language, it's, I'm afraid of what is stored in my unconscious. I don't dive into that unconsciousness. Here's what we've manifested. It's just a small thing.
Yes, it is. I have a request
What is it?
to acknowledge and accept myself.
I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my reincarnations
all my reincarnations
in which I was
in which I was
an ethereal being.
an ethereal being,
A kikimora,
a kikimora,
a mermaid,
a mermaid,
a forest spirit,
a forest spirit,
a house spirit,
a house spirit,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it.
at which I got it.
Say to me, the language of nature
To me, the language of nature
is clearer
is clearer
than the language of humans.
than the language of humans.
Say, I don't
I don't
understand any of you.
understand any of you.
It's easier for me with stones,
It's easier for me with stones,
and it's easier with the elements
and it's easier with the elements
than with people.
than with people,
And I give it space.
and I give it space.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my
all my
water
water
and sea incarnations,
and sea incarnations,
and I give them space.
and I give them space.
I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my incarnations
all my incarnations
on Neptune,
on Neptune,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How do you feel?
I feel so open. I have Neptune in square to Saturn.
I'm Saturn, actually. I have a bunch of planets in Capricorn. I'm Capricorn myself, and there are 4 planets in Capricorn. I'm so Saturn.
I'm air.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
all my incarnations
all my incarnations
in which I lived on Neptune,
in which I lived on Neptune,
and we were taken over
and we were taken over
by Saturnians,
by Saturnians,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
I embrace that experience
I embrace that experience
at exactly the price
at exactly the price
at which I got it,
at which I got it,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that Yulia Ivlieva
that Yulia Ivlieva
is a karmic person for me,
is a karmic person for me,
and you're a karmic person for me. Because astrologically, I have the north nodes in Pisces. And the conflict you have, it mirrors mine, only with the water element. Your stones. It's kind of creeping me out because I'm the one who gave me free will. That everything that's going to happen here is going to happen according to universal law. And if according to this law I need to call up a person with whom I have a mirror connection out of all the people in the room, then that is what happens. That's insane. And the things strongly developed in you and what's developed in me. Anyway, there is a strong connection going on. I didn't expect something like this to happen here with the host, some dirt to come out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too. Absolutely and infinitely.
Right now, some very important process is being shut down. Some very important, long-standing, centuries old. On a human level, completely incomprehensible and inexplicable. But when I was standing next to you and we were talking about the Inquisition and all these things, it made me want to say to you, I'm sorry for what happened back then. This is my personal appeal to Yulia. It's not a phrase for everyone. How do you feel?
Incredible. I feel like I've grown wings. Before that, they were just getting out.
Thank you so much. I want to continue to talk to you about the inner child parts. We're done with you on babies. When you have a situation that you might not have survived whatever happened there, your multi-dimensional psyche splits into a part that knows you survived and a part that doesn't. It doesn't know that you survived. It doesn't know that you have reached this audience or are watching this video. Somewhere in the hospital or in intensive care. After leaving the intensive care, some part of you knows you're out of there. And some part of you is still there. It doesn't know that you survived. These parts that don't know, the so-called dead parts, are still lingering around. They are eager to manifest, to be legalized, and be given a place, recognized for what they are. They manifest in repetitions of scenarios. For example, this is how it was for Nadezhda. I believe she truly loves her children. But with each child came the desire not to have them. As a repetition of the script, as a manifestation of that dead, infantile part. What happens is that to manifest the part that doesn't know you survived, it can manifest to you through your children. Your own children. And exactly at the age at which you almost drowned or drank some kind of acid, when kids get to that age, give or take, they start repeating events. And you go to the hospital with them. They get rescued, but you relive that fear for the child. The fear that they're going to die. To manifest what you couldn't see. And the other thing is that at the age at which this happens, you go into a mental freeze. Like in Nadezhda's example, mental freeze in the infantile part, a desire to be held. If it happens to you at the age of 5 or 7, you get stuck in a 5 to 7-year-old state. 5 to 7 years old is the Oedipus complex. Is the manifestation of one's sexuality, one's first sexuality. Boys begin to realize they are boys, girls realize they are girls. And the Oedipus complex, if not handled correctly, manifests itself further in love triangles. So it's such a tricky correlation. You almost drowned when you were 5 or 7. At 5 to 7 years old, you have this split in your child part of you that knows you're alive, and the dead child part that doesn't know. Then you get stuck at that age, and there's an inner 5-year-old inside of you that wants to manifest. And as an adult, this fixation can manifest itself as you looking for a man father with a potential woman mother in order to wrestle dad away from mom. These are love triangles. And then you are incredibly attracted to busy men, married men, or those that other women are actively interested in. If he's just single, you're not interested in him. You only become interested in him when there's a mom in the background. More specifically, a mom figure. These parts manifest themselves in the fact that when you sit down to play with your children, or they call you saying, "Mom, let's play," the function of playing is a child function. Only a child from their child's part can play. So your living child comes out and says, "Mom, Dad, let's go play." That is calling out to your baby part. Let's go play. And you have a dead body in there. You have this part there that doesn't know if you survived or not. And your real child pulls out a corpse and says, "Let's go play." But it can't play. It's neither alive nor dead. And it can't play. And you develop a sense of anger, of rage, of wanting to run away. You can read a book, you can get things done, or you can travel. That's what you do from the adult part. But no dolls or cars or anything you build specifically from the baby part, God forbid. And it becomes unbearable for you when your child pokes at your inner corpse. Those feelings and emotions come up, but you may not realize it. You just see it. You think, "Man, I love them." Ask for anything but to play. Let's go over some phrases with you, gently, so it's not too loud. I acknowledge and accept all those parts of myself that don't know that we survived. And I'm giving those parts space. I embrace that experience at exactly the price at which I got it. And I give it space. So your living children don't need to manifest these corpses with themselves. Let's go to the level of myths and legends, shall we? I acknowledge and accept all my incarnations when I was living the energy of Lilith, and I give it space. According to legend, Lilith was punished by God and gave birth to dead babies every night. And I give it space. I embrace that experience at exactly the price at which I got it. And I give it space. There are many different versions of this legend, but from the basic scenario, Lilith is Eve's antagonist. Adam, Eve, and Lilith. As punishment, she lived through an experience in which every night her children were killed, or that every night she gave birth to stillborn children. And those people who have a strong connection to this kind of energy live it out in this life as dead child parts, miscarriages, and abortions in large numbers. And those dead babies come out in unpleasant ways. I acknowledge and accept all those in my family and in my reincarnations, the unborn children whose origins were kept secret, who were kept in silence, who was lied about, but I'm giving them space. I embrace that experience at exactly the price at which I got it.
Но у меня к вам есть позитивная новость, что вы можете
I have positive news for you that you can become a support for your child's parts. For your child parts, it makes no difference how many years have passed. If you were promised a Snickers bar or a motorcycle, a moped, a bicycle when you were a child, your brother had one and you didn't, a doll like your sister had, or a girl in kindergarten, or white sneakers that were fashionable at the time, or maybe you were promised a ballet dress, a princess dress, a tiara, or maybe your parents promised you a Barbie doll and then bought a tape recorder. And you still understand that that Barbie doll is out of your reach. There's no age when it's too late. It's never too late. If you know that you have something, each of you knows what you really wanted but didn't get as a child. A toy, a trip to the park, a dress, a chocolate bar, a spring, some gum. You can give it to yourself now, on your own. The internet sells all sorts of things. Order yourself a Barbie. Take yourself to the park if you're into that sort of thing. Don't shove that into your child. I'm going to make my kid's childhood happy. Don't start overwhelming them with gifts, balloons, whatever. I once heard a very sobering phrase that said that when you organize a fancy children's birthday party for your kids, but you never had one yourself, you are betraying your inner child and giving that party, doll, candy to another girl or boy again. You don't realize that it's actually you who wants the sneakers. It's you who wants the balloons. It's you who wants the scooter. Is there anyone among you who loves to throw awesome birthday parties for your kids, but you didn't have anything yourself? And the satiation doesn't come. There doesn't come a point where you can never have enough. Some never even had a cake for a birthday in 40 years, or a candle or balloons. Are there any of you who have never had a cake, candles, or balloons at a birthday party and don't like to celebrate? You? You've never had a birthday party? Can I call you up? Come out here. I'm really interested. What is your name?
Dasha.
Can everyone hear how old Dasha is?
I'm 23.
How old?
23? I'm really anxious.
You've never celebrated your birthday?
No, we had no tradition of celebrating birthdays at all.
No tradition at all? Where did you live that it wasn't a tradition?
Can I not say, please? I don't want to tell that.
All right. So the place where you were born doesn't celebrate birthdays.
Yes,
Is it not a tradition in the family or in the whole area?
the whole area.
All right. How do you feel?
I'm a little scared.
Say, I acknowledge and accept
I acknowledge and accept
that some part of me
that some part of me
doesn't know that I exist,
doesn't know that I exist,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How do you feel?
Scared. Very scared.
Say, I'm very scared
I'm very scared
of being noticed,
of being noticed,
and I give it space.
and I give it space.
How are you?
A little better.
What an interesting thing. And you live in Moscow now?
Yes,
And you still don't celebrate birthdays?
no. I might go out somewhere, but I don't place any real importance on it or anything like that. Just a birthday. It's fine.
All right. And what's your birthday?
October 22nd?
October 22nd.
Yes.
23 years old, so born in 2000.
1999.
1999. Wow. Do you want a birthday party for yourself?
Yeah, I think so.
You need to make up your mind.
Yes.
Why don't we throw Dasha a birthday party? One second. Let's give her a surprise party. Come on. Let me close your eyes. How are you?
All right.
All good? All right.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
They know that you exist.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Sit down. I'm going to have some homework for all of you who are in the audience right now and who are watching the recording. You need to stop betraying your inner children and trying to save some other people's children. Other children in Africa or your own children. Pay attention to your inner child parts. There won't come a time when you stop being children. And up to 90 and up to 120 years old, the child part will be there. It is important and necessary. It's responsible for saying, I want. Your I want is in the child part, in the child. You start paying attention to your child part. You walk into a kid's store, a toy store, an amusement park, and buy yourself all the things you want. Absolutely everything. Notebooks, stickers, colored pens, stickers, scrapbooks, balloons, Barbie dolls. Buy it all for yourself. A toy helicopter. Men are lucky. They have everything intuitively fine-tuned. A kid gets born, he's 3 months old, they're already buying him a helicopter. They're doing great in that regard. Then they start buying bigger cars, like a Galando wagon, for example. If there's a request. What, am I a little kid or something, to buy a remote control car? I need a big one. I need a big one too. That's also a good option. But if you didn't have that little remote control car that all the boys in class had, your inner child is still underfed. You get yourself a cake with candles, balloons, and celebrate your birthday with friends like a holiday. The feelings from such a thing will be strong, but it will be your point of growth. Those who have children, don't make a party for your children first, but for yourself. And it's going to be a different age for everyone. Some will have it at 3, 5, 7 years. Some will have it at 15 to 17. The party where you gather your friends, put on silly dresses with sparkles and bows and balloons and princesses, and celebrate your teenage birthday. You write notes, like you did with the boys, remember? Like the Valentine's Day cards we used to write. Sitting there waiting, thinking, will I get a card from that boy over there, or won't I? I love the holiday card theme. You buy yourself these cards so you have them in front of you, hanging on your refrigerator. It's important for you to get through these parts, because if you don't, you start getting into all sorts of unpleasant stories with other people. And you think you have a great man across from you, a husband. You say to yourself, oh, we're partners. And you start playing mom and dad with him. And your childhood traumas start demanding things from him that he doesn't have at all. He himself is as traumatized as you are. He also wants a remote control helicopter and everything else in the world. That's why amusement parks are for yourself. It's only when you've had enough of it yourself that you go out and buy a toy for your child. A huge number of life events will open up to you through this very simple action. I remember now. I had this childhood story. I was 7 years old and my mom and dad were getting divorced. My mom was doing the whole stay with me PR thing. They had the question of who the children would live with. And the question was, should the kids stay with mom or should they stay with dad? And my mom would say, "You come with me. We'll go to the park. We'll go to the big city." And I, as a child, didn't understand. We stayed with my brother and my mom. My dad left. And then they showed me pictures of my dad standing at the entrance to the park with candy, with kids from another family. He's my dad, but he's standing in a park with other people's kids. I don't understand. What do you mean? That's my dad. I'm the one he should be taking to the park, not them. And it just so happened that both my parents ditched me with the parks. Mom promised and forgot, and Dad took other kids there. And when my daughter was born, she was 1.5 years old. We come to a park, just me, my mom, and my daughter. The baby is asleep in the stroller. We walk in, and there is a carousel with horses. And my mom's standing there, and there's a stroller. And I get on a horseback ride. I was 30 years old. And I was in total hell back then. I had no money. And my mom used her own to take me to the park and take me to Sochi. I make a circle and realize that after 23 years, my mom has kept her promise. She took me to the park. When I took my daughter to Disney World, she was 2.5. She probably remembers what was there. She's 6 now. I approach this Disney World. I walk up and I realize that I'm just floored. I had a meltdown at the entrance to Disney World because the tail came to life. And only probably by the age of 4, when we went to Dream Island for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th time. That's a big amusement park in Moscow. Did I come out thinking, that's it, I'm full, I've had enough. I've had more than enough closure with parks. I took probably every ride there. So about the park. When I moved to Moscow, when I was 21 or 22, I went to the park to walk alone, eat sweets, ride rides. I was closing that gestalt for myself. So friends, you get the message. Everything you didn't get then, but really dreamed of, it's all not too late. You start to get your fill of it. Then you'll stop taking it out on the people closest to you. So stop pestering your partners and have a holiday for yourself. Next, observe how your I want will unfold in your life. What will happen to you? Well, that's about it. We covered the topic of child parts in a very thorough fashion. Thank you.